Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to call the February 9th, 2026 meeting of the Richmond County Board of Elections to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 12th and January 23rd special called, well, excuse me, the 12th is a regular monthly meeting, the January 23rd is special called meeting. All members should have received those minutes via email. Hope that you've had an opportunity.
Madam Chair, so moved.
On both sets?
On both sets.
Okay, there's a motion to approve both sets of minutes as distributed. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Against, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a discussion regarding the 2026 board calendar. Mr. Doss.
All right, we should have in your packet a copy of the calendar for this year. We now have scheduled our regular monthly meetings, which will be on the second. Let me try this again. You should have in your packet the calendar, which is showing that our regular monthly meetings will be on the second Monday of each month at 11 a.m. here in the Lee Beard Commission chambers. I did put two kind of asterisks to note that the March 9th date is the Monday before the special election on the 10th. So I didn't know if we wanted to continue to have that meeting on the 9th and then the election on the 10th, and then the certification meeting would then be on that Friday, or the pre-certification would be on that Friday with the potential of the certification being on the following Monday, or if you wanted to consider wanting to do all of that at one time. And then the November 9th meeting is after the November 3rd election, and we will be meeting on November the 6th for the pre-certification meeting. So we could discuss that one, I guess, closer to time, but it's more a question of whether next month's meeting, the 9th, whether or not you want to hold it on the 9th or wait and hold it on the 13th when we have to do the pre-certification and certification meeting.
Madam Chair, if I may. Mr. Doss, would the March 13th meeting, could we combine the regular monthly meeting, the pre-certification meeting, and the certification meeting on the 13th?
If that is the board's desire, yes, sir.
I'd move that we combine all three of those meetings for March 13th and then at what time will we need to start it?
We would start it at 3 p.m. would be the pre-certification meeting. And then we could do the monthly meeting to follow at 3:30 and or the certification meeting depending on provisional ballots and whatnot. That will be at our normal location, which would be at the warehouse. And because it is during the day, we can also have that meeting live streamed as well. I have verified with the IT department, and they will come out there and live stream that meeting as well.
All right, very well. In order to, I guess, clarify my motion, then it would be to combine the regular monthly meeting, the pre-certification meeting, and the certification meeting, all to begin at 3 p.m. and then to proceed as necessary for the remaining two meetings.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to rearrange the upcoming meetings of the board so that they all occur on March 13th, back-to-back, starting at 3 p.m. at the warehouse. Is there any discussion on that?
Madam Chair, since there's three different purposes, would you have any objection to having the pre-certification at 3, your meeting at 3:05, and if necessary, your certification at 3:10? So they would bring
And doing that, it would give us the flexibility to just roll.
They will roll, but that way, for any notice purposes, they're not noticed all at the same time.
I'll amend my motion in that manner.
Okay. Does that work for staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All righty. So we have a substitute motion or an amendment to the motion that those meetings on March the 13th start at 3 o'clock, followed by the pre-certification would be at 3, the monthly meeting would be 3:05, and the certification meeting would be scheduled then for 3:10. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against, nay. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Doss. And as far as November goes, is there a reason why we shouldn't go ahead and reschedule those?
There is no reason if the board would like to make that decision at this point. So the election is scheduled for November the 3rd. The pre-certification is the 6th. Our regular monthly board meeting is the 9th, which technically could be the certification meeting, just depending on how the board would like to do that. Or, as we have done for the March meeting, we can have the pre-certification, the monthly, and the certification all on the 6th.
Madam Chair, I have recently read in the newspaper that there's a major possibility that we're going to have paper ballots this November. And I am concerned for us on Friday of that week that we may have a lot of work to do. And it may be something that time-wise, we may not be able to do everything. We've got to do the pre-certification, we've got to do the certification. And so to go ahead and schedule our regular monthly meeting, it to me may be a little bit too much for one afternoon.
Okay.
So at this point, I would rather leave it on the following Monday, a little closer to that time. There's a possibility that we can change it at that date, but to change it today, I would not recommend that we do that.
Well, should we just hit the pause button on it, period? And just do nothing with November as what was initially suggested by staff?
Yes, just do nothing
So
until.
we'll just pause it and leave it as written?
And as Member Barnes stated, that would probably be more appropriate because there is some pending legislation that may actually move the certification date as well. So that's in flux at this point.
Yes, Member Reese.
And Madam Chair, if I may, and thank you, Member Barnes, I think this makes perfectly good sense that we ought to wait. We just don't know what's going to happen down until November.
Yep. Madam Chair, if that's the case, I've moved that we adopt the 26 calendar as published by staff with the amendments for the March 13th meeting, having 3 meetings on March 13th.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor to adopt the calendar as proposed and altered this morning in terms of the March meetings. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like possibly for Member McAdams to amend that for any further changes should the issues arise at a later date.
Sure.
We will be able to come back and revisit that.
I guess-
I don't want it chiseled in stone at this point. This sounds good, sounds reasonable, sounds like something we can do, but there may be some things that come up that we may need to change at a later date.
With adopting the calendar, I think it's always understood that it can be changed by any motion of the board in the future. So that was understood in my motion, yes.
That would be fine, thank you.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the calendar? If not, all those in favor of adopting the calendar as written with the understanding that it can be changed at a future date, should it be the desire of the board, indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those against, nay. That motion carries.
And just also on that handout, you'll note I do have the election dates on there for the rest of the year as planned. Of course, as we know, that sometimes things do not always go according to plan.
Mr. Doss, could you explain to me on the March 7th and the June 16th election dates what the plus sign indicates at the end of that description of the election?
Yes, those are noted as if necessary. So
Oh, I see.
March
Pardon me.
17th
Yes.
is one of the special election dates that are allowed by law, but at this point, we do not have anything planned. And then the June 16th is if we have to have a runoff, which, as you can see, I left off the word runoff, which would probably make it better to explain. But the June 16th and the December 1st dates are potential runoff dates.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, is there anything else, Mr. Doss, on this document?
No, ma'am.
All right, if not, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update of the special election in House District 130. Mr. Doss.
All right, you should have a handout for the calendar for the special election for House District 130. Today is the voter registration deadline and also the day that we will start mailing out absentee ballots. We have our elections office coordinator in the audience. How many are we planning to mail out today, Shirley? So we have 7 that we had received by today, so 7 ballots will be going out. We will start LNA tomorrow, and also poll worker training is tomorrow the 10th. Advanced voting begins on the 16th here in the Linda Beasley Room. We have Saturday voting the 21st. The last day for a person to request an absentee ballot is the 27th. We will also have Saturday voting on the 28th and Sunday voting on March the 1st. The last day for advanced voting is March the 6th. And then we've already made arrangements for the regular monthly board meeting, the pre-certification, the certification meeting, which will all be moved to that date of the 13th. And then, of course, the special election date is on March the 10th.
Any questions from any of the board members? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed. The next item on the agenda is an update regarding the May 19th, 2026 general primary and nonpartisan election. Mr. Doss.
Yes, also before we move to that, I did have on your display there is a copy of the sample ballot, which has been posted to our website for the March 10th special election. As you can see, we have 10 candidates and 1 write-in, 6 candidates and 1 write-in. And so if there is a runoff for this election, it would be on April the 7th. All right, here before you is, of course, we're moving forward. Of course, we've got this special on the 10th, but then we have the May 19th general primary and nonpartisan election. We have qualifying, which will start on March the 2nd through the 6th. All nonpartisan races will take place in our office. Any partisan races will be handled by the parties. We have 1 local partisan race, which is the Chief Judge of Civil and Magistrate Court. The other partisan races will be handled through the state parties. The deadline for precinct changes is March the 20th. We have our public hearing next Monday, the 16th at 10 p.m. to discuss those precinct and polling place changes. The first day for UOCAVA ballots is the 31st. Sample ballots on the 6th. We will do our poll worker training on the 7th, LNA on the 13th. The registration deadline is April the 20th, and that's also the first day for us to mail out absentee ballots. Advanced voting will start on the 27th, and that will be at all 4 of our advanced voting locations. Saturday voting, I do have a note there for Sunday voting for the board. I asked the board for a recommendation to make a change in our normal practice. Our normal practice, according to the policy, it just says we will have Sunday voting. A date is not specified in the policy. It just says we will have Sunday voting. For this May election primary, the second Sunday, which is the one we normally use, is actually Mother's Day. We have had voting in the past on Mother's Day, but I would like for the board to consider to move the Sunday voting to May the 3rd, so it would not be on Mother's Day, so our poll workers can spend time with their families rather than here voting, even though they're very dedicated and they've done it in years past. But just to kind of do something differently to allow them to be off on that May the 10th. Then, of course, we have our board meeting on the 11th. The last day for voting is the 15th. And then Election Day is on the 19th. Then we would have, if we want to continue with the practice of pre-certification and certification, we can move the certification day up to May the 22nd. Of course, Monday is Memorial Day, and then, of course, we have a risk limiting audit on that. So those are 3 things, I guess, at this point, the board can either consider at this meeting, or you can consider them at the March meeting, because there's still time as we prepare for the May primary and election.
Would you go back over one more time the things that you want us to reconsider? I have the Mother's Day reassignment. Now, just to be clear, we in the past have offered 1 day of Sunday voting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so you're proposing then to move it from the 2 weeks before the election to 3 weeks before, which fits into the advanced voting schedule, but moves it from Labor Day, Mother's Day.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all righty. And then the other dates you wanted us to think about?
Is if you wanted to hold the certification and the pre-certification meeting on that Friday, the 22nd, rather than waiting until that Tuesday, the 26th.
Do you think that the likelihood of all the provisionals being settled so that we could certify on that Friday is a reality?
Yes, ma'am. Well, as far as we may have to wait for the meeting to be at 5 o'clock, but I
Okay,
believe
true.
after 5 o'clock, we would be able to then certify.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Mr. Doss, should we change the Sunday voting from the 10th to the 3rd? Would we have time to make sure that this appears on all of our dockets and schedules and advertising so that the public will know?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
We have
Therefore,
not,
Madam-
at this point, we have not released the dates for May yet. It is required that we do that by the 13th of April. We must publish advance voting notices, so we have plenty of time to, if we decide to make that change.
Madam Chairman, I move that we change the Sunday voting from the May the 10th to the 3rd, and that we do prepare ourselves for the pre-certification on May the 22nd, but possible that the certification not be the same day. It may have to be on the 26th. So I would move that we go ahead and put it down for the 22nd with the understanding that we may have to continue it to the 26th.
Okay. There is a motion to reorganize the calendar for May such that the Sunday voting would be moved a week ahead to May the 3rd, and that the pre-certification and certification meetings would be held on Friday, the 22nd. If possible, there is a slight chance, I guess, we might have to postpone that until Tuesday, I think is what I'm hearing.
If we need to continue it at that point,
Then we can.
we could.
Okay. Okay, so there is a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's a motion and a second to reorganize the May meetings as indicated. Is there any more discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of reorganizing the calendar for the May primary indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Doss.
And you'll notice there on your screen, those are the offices that will be appearing on the May ballot from federal and state, and then the local offices there at the bottom.
Very good. Very good, thank you. Is there anything else from the board on the May primary at this point? Okay, if not, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is to receive the referendum and issue the call for the May 19th, 2026 SPLOST and FLOST special elections. And with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Plunkett.
Madam Chair, in your packet, you should have seen a referendum resolution that was adopted by the Consolidated Government on, if I have the date right, February 3rd, both for the SPLOST, which is a continuation of the current SPLOST, we're now referring to as SPLOST 9, and then also for a referendum for or request to call for election for a FLOSS, or floating local option sales tax. That would be a half cent as opposed to the traditional 1 cent in that regard, and that is for property tax relief. Then in your packet also, there is a resolution of this board to call for each of those elections. And I'd be happy to try to address any questions that you may have.
Okay, so we, as the board, will turn our attention to the resolution. It's going to be your 2-page document, and the one I'm looking at now is regarding the FLOST. And if you look at the heading of your documents, this would be the document where it specifies a 0.5% sales and use tax. Has everybody found that document within your 4 documents in your packet? Okay, very good. Okay, is there anything that we need to be aware of in this document, Mr. Attorney?
Not specifically. There is a blank for the date, which is just, we'll add, but it parallels with the idea of the resolution that the county, the Consolidated Government City Augusta adopted, asking you to call, and then it incorporates this, and then obviously be advertised and follow the rest of the procedures there.
All right, and I can see in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down the front page where it leads off by saying, be it further resolved, it specifies in there that this advertisement must be published at least 90 days prior to the date of the election, and then it will be published again once a week for 5 consecutive weeks immediately preceding the date of the election. By my research and whatever, but I want to make sure we're right, the 90-day period for publishing the ad, the deadline is February the 18th. And if that's true, then we're within the law as far as publishing the ad. I'm getting a thumbs up from the director.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes, sir.
do we have a date and time that we can put in on the special meeting that we're going to be calling in May for receiving returns?
We do, in that will be our certification meeting.
Okay.
Am I correct in that statement, gentlemen?
Yes, that goes back to what we were just discussing before as far as the certification meeting. So for the purposes of the ad, it seems the will of the board that we would do the certification meeting on the 22nd of May. And then if the meeting has to be continued until the 26th, but the original publication would be to have it on the 22nd.
Okay.
So if I'm correct in that, then this would be for the 5 p.m. on the 22nd of May will be the date and time that we put in on this resolution?
On the 3rd, be it resolved on that front page?
Correct.
That's our recommendation.
Okay. I move that we add that date and time, 5 p.m. on the 22nd of May, to the resolution. That's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion to add the specific date for the certification meeting to this document. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Okay, is there any discussion from the board on that? If not, all those in favor of making that amendment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against, nay. That motion carries.
Sorry. Madam Chair, I now move that we adopt the resolution as with the date and time added in there, and get this one rolling the half cent.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to adopt the resolution as presented with the addition of the specific date and time for the certification meeting. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass and adopt the resolution on the flossed 0.5% sales and use tax. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. The motion carries. Mr. Attorney, do you have a particular document that you want us to execute, or should we just do one of these copies you gave us, or what would you like to do?
I have already inserted the date and time and initialed, and I'll pass that up to you as soon as y'all hopefully resolve the SPLOST as well.
Okay, great. Okay. Very good. Okay, and the next item is the SPLOST referendum, and this is the document in the heading that refers to a 1% sales and use tax. Do all the board members have that document? It's a 2-page document, again, whose heading includes on the next to the last line, 1% sales and use tax. Okay, and on this document, it looks like we have the exact same language on the back of the first page in the third be it further resolved for the insertion of the time and date of the certification meeting. With that,
Madam Chair, I move that we add 5 p.m. on the 22nd of May to the last paragraph with the blanks in it relating to the time where we receive information on this or the returns on this, and that we adopt, with that addition, that we adopt the resolution for the 1% sales tax.
okay. There's a motion on the floor to make the amendment indicating or stating that the certification meeting will be at 5 p.m. on Friday, May the 22nd, and to adopt the resolution with that edit. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. The motion carries. Okay, we're just going to pause just a minute to get these signatures on this paperwork.
Thank you.
So with the adoption of those resolutions, have we effectively now called for the special election? Or should that be a separate motion?
That's it.
This is the call. Okay. Very good. Okay, all set? Very good. Okay, next item on the agenda, item 6 has been taken care of with the signing of those documents. So item 7 is a presentation and discussion regarding the 2024 advanced voting analysis. Mr. Doss.
Okay, so I was asked at a previous meeting about doing an analysis on the advanced voting with the possibility of changing the times of the advanced voting. So Member Reese asked for this information during one of our polling place meetings. And so what I did was I was able to obtain data from the poll pad data for the May primary and the November election for 2024. That was the best data I could get because that was the time that we did have all 4 of the advanced voting locations open. That was when we first started, with all 4 locations being open from 8:30 to 6 for the 3 weeks, 2 Saturdays, and a Sunday. What we analyzed, of course, were the voting hours from 8:30 to 6. We looked at the different time stamps. The time stamps on the data was the ending time. So if the timestamp had a 9 a.m., we knew that was for voting between 8:30 and 8:30 and 9. And then when the check-ins were recorded, we did have a few check-ins that were recorded after 6 p.m., but we excluded that from our analysis because voting ended at 6. But as you know, if anybody was in line at 6 o'clock, they were still allowed to vote. So sometimes those check-ins could have been reflected after 6 p.m., even though the person was not allowed to vote after the close of 6 p.m. The analysis showed that the peak turnout consistently occurred mid-morning through early afternoon, approximately from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our lowest utilization occurred during the opening from 8:30 to 9 and the final hour from 5 to 6. November turnout was higher overall, but the hourly patterns pretty much mirrored the May primary. Looking at each location individually, for the May 24th election, the main office downtown, our busiest voting time was from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., and our least busiest time was 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. For the Charles Evans Community Center, which you'll remember from May, we had to use Charles Evans because the Henry Brigham was not available for May. Our busiest times at Charles Evans was from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., and the least busy time was first thing in the morning from 8:30 until 9. The Robert Howard Diamond Lakes facility, the busiest times in May was from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., and the least busiest time was first thing in the morning from 8:30 to 9. In Warren Road, the busiest times was from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., with the least busiest time being in the morning from 8:30 to 9. Overall, for the May election, the main office showed the highest volume with 3,290 voters. A close second was Robert Howard with 2,970, and then Warren Road at 2,350, and Charles Evans with 827. To give you an analysis of showing the peak times there at the main office, you'll see that the peak times as reflected was that 12 to 1 p.m. with the 11 to 12 and 1 to 2 being a close second. You'll notice as we go through this presentation, it's a very consistent bell curve that we have with the voting. The Charles Evans location had their peakest time was from 1 to 2, and then it dropped from 2 to 3, picked back up from 3 to 4, and then went downhill from 4 to 6. Robert Howard kind of had a little bit of up and down there, with the peak time being from 11 to 12, with a very close second for that 2 to 3, and then another spike from 4 to 5, and then a big decrease from 5 to 6. Warren Road had their peak time around the lunchtime from 1 to 2, and then steadily went downhill until 6 p.m. This is showing county-wide turnout, and as I said before, the 11 to 12 and the 1 to 2 were the peak times for county-wide during May, with the lowest hours being in the morning and there in the afternoon. When we look at November, the main office, their peak time was from 11 to 12, again, which consistent with May, and their least busiest time was first thing in the morning from 8:30 to 9. We opened up Henry Brigham for the November election, and their busiest times was from 4 to 5, with the least busiest being first thing in the morning from 8:30 to 9. Robert Howard, their busiest times was from 4 to 5, with the least busiest at 8:30 to first thing in the morning from 8:30 to 9. Warren Road, 1 to 2, with the least busiest being in the morning when we opened up. Warren Road was our busiest location for November with 14,000 voters, with Robert Howard being a close second with 14,179. The main office at 12,800, and then Henry Brigham at 10,151. Showing followed the November main office, sort of the same thing what it did before, with 11 to 12, and the 2 to 3 being the busiest times, with a sharp decrease after 5 p.m. From the 5 to 6 p.m. Henry Brigham had a large uptake from 4 to 5, and then a slight decrease after that, but it was pretty consistent throughout the day, except the morning hours were the least utilized. Robert Howard was pretty consistent with a uptick between 4 and 5, and then downward from 5 to 6. And then Warren Road was pretty consistent across the board, with slower in the morning and then a drop after 5 p.m. Countywide, you'll see the 11 to 12 and the 4 to 5 were the larger turnouts. So in both the May and November voter turnouts, they were consistently peaked during the mid-morning to midday hours, usually between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The lowest utilized periods of time were the 8:30 to 9 a.m. and the final hour from 5 to 6 p.m. Turnout declined noticeably after the 5 p.m. in both elections, with 5 and 6 p.m. periods ranking among the lowest of the busy hours overall. Location-based observations, while total turnout varied by location, all 4 locations followed the same general hourly pattern. Each location experienced its busiest periods between mid-morning to early afternoon. No location showed an increased demand during the extended early morning hours or the late afternoon hours. November turnout volumes were higher overall, however, the hourly distribution mirrored May. Neither election demonstrated sustained or increased voter activity before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. Based on these observed voter behaviors after 2 elections in multiple locations, extending the voting hours beyond 5 p.m. would not align with demonstrated voter demand, as a turnout declines during that final hour of voting. Opening earlier than 8:30 p.m. would also be unlikely to increase participation, given that the consistently low utilization during the earlier periods. The data was taken from the 2 elections, the 4 locations showing consistent voter behavior. Turnout declined after 5 p.m. and remains among the least utilized periods. Opening earlier than 8:30 a.m. or extending later than 6 p.m. would increase costs without evidence of increased participation. Current voting hours currently align with the voter demand. The data indicates that existing voting hours appropriately capture our peak voting activity. Adjusting to extended hours earlier or later would increase operational cost without evidence of corresponding increase in voter turnout. Are there any questions?
I just have one question for clarification. Back on your slide, let's see, not the next to the last one, but the one prior to that. That's the one. In that first bullet, did you mean 6 p.m. in that first bullet rather than 5 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. I should have said extending the hours beyond 6 p.m. would not, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is, thank you for putting that together. We can see that advanced voting is very popular, in Richmond County. Yes, we can. I think that this is good data to have, and I also believe that if we are going to look at making changes in the time for advanced voting hours, that we look to do that in 2028, and not for this election year. And the reason I say that is because while it may not sound like much to say, well, we're going to open for an extra hour and a half every morning and an extra hour in the afternoon, the fact of the matter is that adding those hours adds our poll workers' work day to about 14 hours by the time you factor in opening and closing at each day. And it would almost assuredly mean that there would have to be some type of shifts put into place for poll workers to work, because we couldn't, I don't think, expect them to work 3 solid weeks, 14 hours a day. And, you know, that's a pretty big ask. I also know that if we were going to move towards any type of shift-based work, that it's going to take a lot of planning. And I'm just not sure that's something we want to throw in the mix in the middle of this busy upcoming midterm. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Madam Chair, I agree completely. I think at this point, we have a heavy load going forward this year, and we would, of course, have to almost double our staff if we, and our poll workers, should we try to do anything. So I think at this point, this is good information for us to have for the future, but I don't think we need to make any changes through this 26 cycle, election cycle.
And Madam Chair, if I may, yes, and thank you, Mr. Doss. This is good information and what I did ask for. And again, great information, but I'm thinking, and yes, I agree, we don't have to do this change right now, but we do need to do something. People cannot make an 8:30 appointment to come vote because the day starts quite early. You need to get your house going, your children out to school for those that have children, workers to go. By 8:30, you probably are already at your desk ready to start your day. So that's why there's low in the morning. However, in the afternoons, pretty much the same thing. You're done work, you just go on home for 6 o'clock because some people don't even get off until 6. So that's what I'm looking at to extend those hours. However, I do agree we do have a lot to do as far as our workers. And you have time to do shift work, you have time to train them, and we can work on this for 2028. I'm fine with that. But we do need to amend this.
Mr. Beverly, anything? McAdams?
My one thought for future voting might be to shift the hours as opposed to 8:30 to 6. We might do something like 9:30 to 7. And that way we could keep the same worker load, and but we would give people an opportunity to vote in the evening as opposed to in the morning. And so I think we could just by shifting the hours, use the same staff, same resources, but give people an evening option in the future. Because it seems like the morning is not super utilized, but it also if there's people waiting in line at 6, then extending to 7 might be a good move. So. That is just a thought that we could keep things more or less the same as far as staffing goes, but shift the hours an hour ahead.
Thank you for that. And I also appreciate the fact that we will have this busy midterm election year to collect more data and see what kind of consistencies we find from a presidential election to a midterm election, and you just kind of how all that looks. No comments?
I'd probably like to get some public input as to whether or not a 7 a.m. voting period. I'm in agreement with Ms. Reese, and that is when you look at the data that you have here, absolutely, I can truly understand why the 8:30 to the 10 o'clock would be probably the least used time, because that is prime time for work. Before 8:30, let's say from 7 o'clock until that time, that is making my way, getting prepared to go to work, to get there by 8:30. I think probably starting at 9 o'clock, we're probably going to have very few people that are coming at 9 o'clock as well, because that's peak work time. So, I agree. Let's hold off doing anything until 2028, but really look at it and maybe get some public input as to whether or not an earlier voting time would work as well. the trend seems to be at that 8:30, 9 o'clock. I doubt if that ever changes, because most of us are knee deep into work by that time. But at 7 o'clock in the morning, if I know I need to vote, I'm getting up at 6:30, go hit that voting place at 7 o'clock, then make it to work by 9, and I don't have my employer saying, I need you to be here. So I'm in agreement.
Very good. Okay, any other thoughts, discussions on that? Okay, Mr. Ross, thank you so much for that presentation, for that good data. So we will continue to collect that data, or would you please continue to collect that data through the elections this year? And let's sit back and take a good look at it at the beginning of maybe 2027 and just kind of see what it looked like.
I was going to say, the other thing we could also do, even though it's not advanced voting, we could also look at voting trends as far as election day is concerned.
Absolutely.
With the polls being open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., on election day, we could analyze what type of turnout we might have between that 7 to 8:30 hour and the 6 to 7 hour. I did want to make one note to Member McAdams. The law requires for advanced voting to be open from 9 to 5, so we could only adjust it by 30 minutes if we were from the early time. It does give us the flexibility of extending those hours. Either way, earlier than 9, after 5, but we are required to at least be open from 9 to 5.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments from any of the board members? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is old business. Is there any old business to come before the board? Moving along, the next item on the agenda is new business. Is there any new business to come before the board? Okay, hearing none. Yes.
I just wanted, and I'm not sure if this should go under the new or not, the special election, Mr. Doss, you said that we could only have open the municipal building for that day for voting, early voting? Is that in the Constitution, the law, or is that coming from policy? I just didn't understand that.
Actually, if I might, I believe the board voted on that at their last meeting and decided that because House District 130 was concentrated in this area down by the municipal building, that we would open up only this spot rather than those out in South Augusta and West Augusta, since those areas were not involved in the election. Am I correct with that?
Right, but I was just asking because the concern now is, since this is in hindsight, and I don't know how we could correct this, we're worried about all of the construction out front here and people getting here. It's inconvenient.
If I may, I did, after the emails I received, I did verify with engineering and the plan. Of course, we all know there's a plan. The plan is that the construction should be finished by mid-February. So we have advanced voting starting on the 16th, and they are telling me that they hope to have everything completed within the next 2 weeks. Now, that will, left to be seen. But as far as the construction is concerned, it is just that section of Telfair Street that is closed, just the first entrance way. People can enter the parking lot from 6th Street and from Telfair Street. If you're coming from 5th Street, you just can't enter the parking lot from Telfair and 6, meaning you can't come to that area. As far as parking is concerned, we would normally, have 10 designated parking spots that we put out for advanced voting, and then we could increase that if we felt the need was necessary.
Yeah, maybe another 10 more spots, maybe from the 10 to maybe 20.
Well, I was going to say, we can see that as far as how the turnout goes, if it looks like that is necessary. As of now, even normal business, there's enough parking, but we can, of course, assess that as we go along.
So that the first day, or, okay, you're just going to assess it, so we don't know how or when that's going to happen. But I'm thinking maybe, you said there's 10 spots already designated for early voting, so maybe we can open that up automatically, make sure we have at least 15, 20 spots open for parking, because I mean, it's really, there's nowhere to park out there.
And I can appreciate that, but I would not recommend that at first, only because, as you know, that with this particular election, there is only about 40,000 voters for this particular. If this was a countywide election, I'd be more concerned about everybody from the county coming to one location, and that's one of the reasons why we have the 4 locations. But with this particular election, with the expected low turnout and the lower number of potential voters, I think 10 at this point. We would have 10 for advanced voting. There's a couple of other hour parkings. There is only one issue on the ballot, so I don't anticipate. I mean, people are not going to be coming and parking for long periods of time, so I'm anticipating they'll be in and out relatively quickly. So I think 10 is sufficient. However, if the board would like to go more than that, I can verify or check with the administrator's office to see if they have a problem if we take over more spots in the parking lot.
And we've
Mr.
been
Dunn.
told that they're going to be finished with the construction by the end of this month, February?
That is the projected deadline, yes, ma'am.
And if they are not?
The projected deadline is the middle of February.
The middle of February.
Mr. Doss,
is now.
Madam Chair, once, my office is so close to here, but on the corner of 15th and Telfair, it says it's blocked and it says no through traffic.
Is that
Is
5th
there
and
any-
Telfair? Is it 5th?
It says no local. It says local traffic only.
Is there any way that we can put out signs that would say vote and arrows that would show them where they could come to vote so that there won't be any confusion? Someone may just say, hey, I can't even get in there. So is there any way that or anything we can think about doing at that intersection that might help? Or put out signs showing where to vote, a lot more signs around the municipal building for this particular election. Maybe that would help rather than, I'm not as concerned about parking places, but I am concerned about people knowing
Right.
where to come, which way to go to get in.
And just not being deterred.
And not being deterred.
Well, one of the-
That would be my concern more than the parking places.
Well, that is all of that works together, but because we are trying to make this more efficient and get this, done expeditiously, I really do think because we care, we need to make it happen and show that we care. Some signs, this is where you go, like you're saying, you can't get in and out of here, Travis.
If we can.
So one of the things that, and I'm glad you brought that up, I think one of the things is to allay fears of whether or not they can come in. I've had several people to ask me about all the construction going on. Are we able to put on our website that not to be deterred by the traffic or the construction that's going on? There will be entrance and exits for you to come in. So please do not be deterred because of the construction going on, or put on that it is to our knowledge that construction should be completed by the middle of February, end of February. So there should not be an issue if you come in to vote. I like the idea of putting out some signs, but also putting out to people so that they're not fearful about coming down. They may not come down because they just know it's not good. But if we can allay their fears now and let them know that we'll be open for business, and there is an entrance and an exit to go. I'm not sure if we can put that on the website or not, or just a thought.
No, we can definitely do that. And to Ms. Barnes' statement, we do have, I don't think the term is tent signs, but we do have smaller signs that we can put there on the corner directing people. I did go back and look at the sign. The sign says local traffic only. It doesn't say closed. It does say local traffic only. But because the
they-
road is open from there. But we can put a sign there directing people there and also from the 6th Street as well.
Just so that they know that
Yes.
it just gives them up front something, hey, I can go through here and park and vote.
Well, it's welcoming.
Thank you. It's welcoming. Thank you.
And we do normally have, I don't know if you've noticed the feather banner flag that usually sits out in front, so we'll have that posted out front also.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if
sir.
I may, I guess I'd just like to add my 2 cents, Mr. Doss. If signage can be bolstered up to where, I'm just piling on, if signage can be bolstered up to where it's clear that people need to go around the sign in order to park, and that also, what I mean by that is go around the road closed sign or local traffic only sign. If we could have signage next to that, in front of it, around it, that lets people know where they need to go. And also, if you could just ask planning or whoever you need to talk to, and get some pre-clearance and let them know that we might be asking for more parking spaces. If it looks like that's the case, I guess I would just request that you work to get ahead of those things so that when changes need to be made, they can be made immediately.
Thank you, everybody.
Good work. Okay, any other comments on that? Any other comments from staff on that? Okay. The next item on the agenda is legal session. To my knowledge, there is no need today for a legal session. And that makes the next item on the agenda a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank y'all very, very much.